Okay. So we're going to cover just the image tab, which is this tab right up here. And there's lots of things under it. And we will go through those and I will tell you which things to ignore for now. And if people have questions about it, we may cover it at a later time, but the important things I'm going to go through. So once again, I've said this many times if you've been in any of the sessions, but Photoshop is an extremely vast program, and it's also directly connected to Adobe Camera Raw. And this is where you find Camera Raw is under Filter. So you can go to that anytime you wish. And it's the same one that's used in Lightroom. So if you're comfortable with that, it's exactly the same thing. So let's go to the Image tab. And first thing we come across is Mode. And you'll see a lot of things here. And some of them are grayed out and some of them are available to you. For instance, I could change this to grayscale, but that's not where you want to do it. If you want to change to a black and white, you don't want to do it here. I'll cover it in just a couple minutes. It's RGB color, which is the standard. And if you notice CMYK color here, you don't want CMYK color unless you're creating a poster for a commercial printer or for a large format printer where you're having a big wall mural done or something like that. They may ask for CMYK, and you can convert your file to that simply by clicking on this. But it's not something we would typically use as photographers. And the other things are more complicated, lab color, multi-channel. You don't want to touch those. Now down here, bits per channel. I have mine, as you see, set to 16 bits per channel. And that's something that's selected when you bring your images in from RAW. And I'll show you where that is right now. So I'm going to go to a RAW image. So I'm going to take one of the ballerina reject shots, and I'm going to click on this, and it's going to take me into RAW in a second. I probably had too much open today, so it's a little slow. Okay, so there's my ballerina. And if you notice down here at the very bottom, it says Adobe RGB 16-bit. You can change that. It's going to default to 8-bit, which is the standard. 16-bit has more detail and it makes much bigger files. So you'll have to decide if you want to do that or not. But that's where mine is set, and that's where it always comes in at. So if you haven't noticed
destructive?
I'm sorry?
Is that destructive? So if you pick 8, then you can't go to 16 later? Or you had to go back to the original?
You cannot, because once you go through Adobe Camera Raw, it will save it as 8, 16, up to 32, but that's way too much. But 16 is very clear and crisp, and I like it, but it makes huge files. And you can change it down here. Okay, I'm gonna get out of here and go back to this. All right. So many of the things that you'll see here can also be done in Camera Raw. And if you do them there, you don't need to do them here, but there are some that are better here. And in adjustments, the first thing you come to is brightness and contrast. So I'm going to open a different file. And these are wildflowers in a place called Shell Creek near San Luis Obispo. And I'm going to make this a little bigger. And the first thing you come to is brightness and contrast. And that's very simple sliders up here. You can see those. And you can slide them to make the image a little brighter. You can change the contrast, a little more contrast. And the things you have to watch out for is like the sky, for example. That sky might start to look a little too weird. If I go back to the original, that's the way it was shot, but it's a little dark. And I tend to, by the way, I tend to shoot all my images a tiny bit dark because I can increase the brightness without damaging the image. If you shoot the other way, it's hard to take a bright image and make it darker without damaging the image or causing pixelization. Easy for me to say. So let's go back here and look at brightness and contrast. So if I just opened this as a raw file, and I think it needs a little brightness. And the contrast, I might give it just a tad of contrast. Now, I'm not sure about the sky, so we can look at that with another tool. And I'm going to say, okay.
And you don't do that as a adjustment layer, you do it directly
On the whole image.
On the whole image?
Yeah. Now, I can easily, these days, you don't need to even do adjustment layers. Over here, you could do a selection tool. So this is the lasso tool, but I prefer the polygon lasso tool. But you have to go up to the options up top and give it a big feather. So I'm going to say like 40 pixels. And then I can come right here and click and drag and click and drag. And I'm just doing it roughly. You can do it much more precisely if you wish to. That way, it's only affecting this selection. I can go back to image adjustments, brightness and contrast. I can reduce the brightness. I can even make it a stormy sky if I wanted to. But you can adjust the brightness, and I would bring it down a little, come maybe somewhere around there. Look at the contrast. I don't think, if you go up too high on the contrast, the blue starts looking too phony. So I'll give it a little bit of contrast. And I'm okay with that. Now I'm going to show you another way to do this in a minute or so with another tool that's under this image tab. And go ahead and ask questions anytime, anyone. So there's also, you'll see levels, curves, exposure, all those things are in Camera Raw as well. And I wouldn't spend any time on them. Curves, if you're not familiar with it, you can grab a point here. I'm going to move this so you can see. I'm going to grab a point and I can make the highlights really strong or bring them really down quite a way, or I can choose another point. So you have to get familiar with curves in order to use them properly. But it's strictly grabbing a point on this, which is dark to lights, and moving them to a place that looks good for you.
Now, do you use the graph that they show to tell you anything?
Now,
Okay.
This graph on the screen,
Yeah.
it tells you how much. So there's like I can pull this, by the way, this way and change the color tones.
Wow. Okay.
But I don't. So I think you just leave it as is. And especially for this class, I wouldn't touch that. So
Eric, I got a quick question for you. Can
yes.
you go to the picture and pick the point on the curve?
No.
Okay.
It just gives you it shows you the lightness and darkness in that graph, and that's
Yeah, I was just wondering if you can get the value off of a spot on the picture.
You could get a value off of that that's in the color grading and,
Oh, got it. Okay,
but I think that's a little complicated for what we want to talk about today.
got it. Okay.
All right. Exposure, everybody knows what that is, and that's in the Camera Raw. So typically, most people are going to bring it through Camera Raw, so you will have already done something with that at that point. Vibrance is also in Camera Raw, and I would do it in Camera Raw. And I'm going to go there in a minute, but hue and saturation, though, is in Camera Raw, but this has a better one. And the reason it's better is it also has lightness. So I can change the hue if I think that those clouds need to be a little darker, or I want to change the hue of the flowers. This is without a selection, so this is affecting the whole image. Otherwise, if you make a selection, then it'll only select that portion of the image. But the nice thing is that it's also got a lightness tool. So I can darken something and then saturate and get a whole different effect. And you guys can play around with this. This is a little too dramatic for submitting, unless you're in creative, I guess. We could have a green field of flowers and a purple sky. As a matter of fact, last night, or excuse me, Monday night at the competition, someone had a purple or a pink sky in their Miami skyline. So in the prints. So these are things to play around with. Now you notice here it also says master. You can do it just to the yellows, for example, since there's a lot of yellow in this. And I can change just the hue of the yellow, making it warmer, making it green. I don't have to affect any other colors. You notice my sky's not changing color. And now I've got red roses. So it only affects a single color at a time. And that's all under hue and saturation. There's a lot going on here, more than you realize.
So
But it's a
doing
nice
it
tool
here versus in Camera Raw, can you undo this and change it? If you do it in Camera Raw, you can't change it, or it's either way you can.
If you do it in Camera Raw, can you change it? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, so if I change the hue in Camera Raw, can I come here and then change it back?
Yes, you
Okay.
can. And you can also go back to Camera Raw anytime you want from here, from Photoshop as well.
Right, okay.
Okay, so let's say okay. I'm gonna move this over a little bit. All right, so this is the most used tab that I use, but I think anyone in Photoshop, this is the most used tab. It's been around for a long time, not since day one of Photoshop when I started with it, but it's been around for 10 years probably. And you have all these selections. Color balance is something that you'll be familiar with when you look at it. You can shift colors based on the three base RGB, blue, yellow, magenta. Excuse me, RGB is red, green, blue, but these are the three colors that it shows. And these are CMYK colors, which is cyan, magenta, yellow, but no black. But it's safe to say you can just ignore this because there are better tools to do that with. And I'll show you some of those too. Okay, so if you want to turn a scene into a black and white, this is where you want to do it. And I'm going to do it. I'm going to switch images. And I'm going to say image, adjust, black and white. Oops, sorry. I have to do one more step first. This is a layered file. If anyone's interested, this is a file that I had to print on Monday night. And this just will show you how I put this together. This is the original photograph that I took of the ballerina jumping, and she was on these wood chips actually. But I wanted kind of a more grungy sidewalk. So she and I walked to a nearby location where there was a sidewalk, and I had her jump. And this shadow is actually not the shadow from her in this photo, but a shadow from a different photo. And I can actually, I think I have it here. I can show it to you if my mouse will cooperate. So this is the other photo, and I took this shadow from this photo and the sidewalk and put it into here. Okay, so in order to go black and white, you can't have layers. So I have to merge these two together. And now I've got a single layer. And I can come back and I can do image, adjustments, black and white. And it immediately turned it to black and white. But well, am I happy with that? Not quite. I want to make a few adjustments. So there was a lot of color in that wall, if you remember. And this slider allows me to choose the reds only that are in that wall. It remembers all the color information from the original photograph and allows you to change it while you're in black and white mode. So I can do a lot of that. If I do it too much, her skin tones are going to go away because she has reds and browns in her skin tones. So I'm going to go back. That was about 40, so I'm going to keep it there. The yellows, I can bring down some to get a little more darkness in the wall. And this is all going to be subjective taste, you know, what you like. And we can change the greens as well. What's happening to my mouse? Okay. I'm going to change the greens. And that changes only the greens that were in that back wall. Since she wasn't wearing anything green and she doesn't have any green in her skin tones. And the cyans, which are the blues, we can do that too. I can change those. And those cyans are light blues and the darker blues. And that's about where I would do that. And magenta, I have to be careful because she has magenta in her skin tones. I don't want to go too far. But I like something like that, and it creates a nice, crisp image. And I actually created one before we started here, so I can show you that one. I'm going to cancel this, which will take me back to my colors. And that's what I created from that. That's a nice, pleasing black and white image. A little busy with all that going on, but that's where your caption will have to help you out.
Can you make it full screen, Eric?
Oh, yeah, sure. Nice to see you, Mercury.
He actually made it. You know, your vignetting helped in this photo as well.
Say that again.
The vignetting added to this as well.
Yes, I added a slight vignette in there as well. And does everybody know where the vignette is? If you don't know where it is, speak up.
I don't know.
Okay, I will show you. So let's go back to the ballerina here, and we'll go to, it's in Camera Raw. The Camera Raw filter. And that'll take a minute to open. And then you go all the way down here to effects.
Yeah, okay, I know that in Lightroom, so that'll be the same.
Yeah, it's same. And then you can create the vignette that focuses more on her. And when I think about it, I probably should have done that for the print I made. It would have given a little bit more enhancement, but anyway.
It was more dramatic in the black and white interest to me.
Yeah. But you can do it anywhere. I was just showing you where it was. Okay. Then we're gonna go to photo filter. So for photo filter, let's go back to the black and white image. And I'm gonna do image adjust. And photo filters are a whole series of color filters. If you ever worked with filters on cameras in the old days, it gives you that similar effect. So photo filter, and I already have a warming filter that is my default. But for this, I would add more. Give it a deeper sepia tone, maybe right around 50%. And you just choose your filters. You know, they have all these different colors. You can also create custom colors as well. So I'm going to go just say what, let's see what blue looks like. Not bad, not bad. Cools it way down. I think I like the warmer. And there are several different warming filters, and there's cooling filters, but you just pick something that you're comfortable with and then choose a density that you like so it doesn't get too orange or too out of this world. Okay. Let's see.
So that filter was under the filter menu. Where was that?
That was under image adjust,
Okay.
photo filter.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. And it's great for monochrome. I use it all the time for monochrome. Add a little bit of sepia or a little bit of blue or a little bit of something. Let's see. Okay. A great tool, and Will, on your shot of the Fort Point, that was a little contrasty. The black and white that you did was nice shot. And here's where I would have used this shadow and highlight tool. I don't know if you tried it or used it, but initially what it'll do is it'll blow things out. But you can then change. And look, watch her dress. That's called a pancake tutu, I learned, by the way. But watch it as I move it.
Oh, yeah.
So it changes it enough that it's kind of interesting. And it also gives a little more density to the shadow. So it's something to play with and look at. And typically I don't use this top slider very much. I use mostly the bottom slider. So that's the original image, and then you can change it quite a bit by just doing that. And try it on all of your images. You don't have to use it, but try it. And even landscapes, things like that, it'll deepen shadows or bring shadows out a little bit if you need to do that. And it's a nice little tool for that, because it's really only looking mostly for blacks or dark colors. And it does it, you know, it automatically looks for them. Okay. Now, here's going to be your favorite tool. And I have talked about this tool before in other sessions. So coming down further, channel mixer, don't worry about that. Color lookup, none of these things are going to be worth your time. Shadows and highlights will be. HDR toning, if you want to give it that HDR effect, that's what this is for. But Photoshop, I think, is a little harsh when it does it. So I don't really care for it. But if you want to play with that, you can do it. It's sliders, just like everything else. But what you're going to like is replace color. So we're going to go to replace color. Now, if I look at this overall image, all this color going on in the background, I might say to myself, there's a little too much pink in here. So I'm going to click on that, and you see up here, it's selected the pink. And then you have something called fuzziness. And fuzziness is, it's going to select less of it, all the way down to dots. Or it's going to select the whole image. You don't want the whole image, so you always want to stay pretty much below 100. And I'm going to go with about 80, and you'll have to get used to this. This is just like every other part of Photoshop. And now I can change those pinks to a different color. So watch the pinks in the background. And I'm changing them to white-ish, lighter. And now I've got a different look, less pink throughout the whole image. Now she's still okay, right? But the rest of the image, now I can go the other direction. Let's put it back. And there's white. Now I'm going greens. It's changing it to greens. So I can play with this and to more my liking. And actually, lighter colors in there, I think is a little bit better. I don't like the pinks myself. The nice thing about this too is that once you do that, pick your color, then you can move your saturation. You can increase saturation if you wanted to make it a little more dramatic. A little too far there. Or if you wanted to make it lighter or darker, you can do that with your lightness. And so you can darken those colors up and just make them washed out a little bit. So you can do that with a jacket on a person. Let's say you have someone with a blue jacket, but you want it to be a red jacket. You could click on that red jacket or a blue jacket, and you can shift those colors to a red jacket.
Like in a landscape shot, you always want them to have a red jacket.
That's right. You want a little guy there with a red jacket or a little person with a red jacket.
Red umbrella.
So you can do that. And this allows you, the fuzziness is the key for that. So you have to, if it was just the jacket for an individual, for example, I would say, okay, let's say that this guy is standing in here. And I'm going to select just that area. Now it's only going to affect that selection when I go image, adjustments, replace color. The rest of the image isn't going to be affected. Only that burgundy there will be affected. And I can lighten that up and I can change the hue. And I can saturate it. And now I've got a red jacket. Or in this case, a red ink blob. But so if you're doing just a guy in a jacket, I would select at least around it. You can do a rough selection like this one. You don't have to be perfect. And it will affect just that one color. Okay. Now, if you go back here, I've been going down the adjustments layer and I got all the way down to replace color and equalize. You don't want to do that. That gives us kind of a stupid effect. I'll click on it just so you can see, but it blows out everything. So Control Z or or Command Z and get out of it. All right, but I've been doing the adjustments, but over here you'll see several other things. You'll see auto tone, auto contrast, and auto color. And that's Photoshop saying, I think that the image would look best this way. And I don't use these, but you can feel free to try them. Sometimes it's worth trying that it may do a good job, especially with, if you had an old photograph that was shot under like fluorescent lights, for example, and has kind of a yellowy cast. and you've scanned that and now you've got it, well, you could hit auto tone and it would change it slightly. I don't know how it's going to affect us in our picture here, the ballerina, but let's just click on it and see. Subtle, little change, made the back wall a little bit darker. And so that's fine. Auto contrast, I don't know what it's going to do. It liked what I had already, so it didn't do anything. And auto color. Yeah, not much. Like I said, it works best on images that have unbalanced color and have, like I said, the fluorescent lights and things like
It
that.
darkened it, it did add some contrast.
Yeah, it did a little bit. I don't know if it's an improvement or not. We'll see. Okay, so I do all of the sizing of my images for submissions in Photoshop because it's pretty easy to do. So you just do image size and you come over and look at this. And I had already done this one 1920, but our maximum height is supposed to be 1200. So here's an interesting trick if you don't know it. You click on this, which no longer links the width to the height, and you can do 1200, which is supposed to be our maximum. And you'll say, okay. And it simply squashed the image down a little bit. I probably wouldn't do that, but if it was only off by 5 pixels or something like that, that's definitely a quick and easy way to do it. So I'm going to do Control Z, put it back. And if I wanted 1200 pixels, I would change my rulers. And if you don't use rulers, you should. And you turn those on, by the way, in Window. You hit Window, and then, I'm sorry, you don't hit Window. You hit View, and then you click Rulers in order to turn those on. And it gives you the size of the image, but you can right-click on that and change it to pixels. So now I'm dealing with pixels, and I could take my marquee tool, which is what I use for all my cropping, and I could come down here to 1200. And then I'll pull it down because I don't want to crop off the sidewalk because I've got some extra sky there. And then I say image crop.
Mhm.
And now it's 1200, 1900, 1920 by 1200. Canvas size. That's just telling you right now it's the same as what my image is, 1918 by 1203 it is now since I cropped it. And I can change that, and let's make it inches so it's easier to understand. And I can change that to 7, let's say, 7 wide and 5 high. And when I say okay, it's going to put whatever the background color is on your left-hand side. And typically, I use white there. So I'm going to cancel this, sorry. And typically, I use white. And then you can see what it's going to look like on a white background, which is usually what you have for a matte, just to give you a better idea. So image canvas size, inches. And I'm going to go 7 by 5. And I'm going to say, okay. And now it puts a white border around it.
Mhm.
And it's actually a little more even than what it shows, but canvas size is nice. Now, if you look at your layers panel over here, you'll see that there's a lock on the background right now. You double click on that, it takes it off and it asks you, do you want to, yeah, just say, okay. Now what that does is it allows that image to be free on this canvas. So I can move that image anywhere around on the canvas.
Would
And
you show that again, please?
so automatically Photoshop, when you open up an image, let's go back here to the wildflowers. See how it says background and there's a little lock?
Mm-hmm.
Double click anywhere on this and say okay. And now it's unlocked, which means you can move it on a canvas, is what it means. It means I can do this. There is no canvas here. There's a blank area behind here, but I can move it around if I wanted to.
Yeah.
And where it comes in handy is like this ballerina shot. If I wanted to fix that white background so it was even on 3 sides, and then I wanted a little more down here because I'm going to sign the image, maybe. You can do that. And I just use this again as a marquee selection tool and image crop. And now that's the canvas is set up like that.
Okay.
All right, image adjustments, canvas size, image rotation. Okay, so I can do what's called, I'm going to select this whole thing with my marquee tool over here. I just selected the whole thing. Then I'm going to say Control T, which stands for transform. And I could change the angle of this if I wanted to. If there was a reason to do that, I could change it 90 degrees. I could, I could do whatever I want with it. I don't want to do anything with it, but I just thought I'd show you that as part of what you can do with that. So let's go back to image rotation. What I would have a need for is to flip the canvas horizontal. So now she's going the other direction. I have definitely used this many times for the club because in a projected image, it seems like, and the way you read, right, is left to right. So it almost looks better in this format than it did in the other, in my mind. So I have her now going left to right. So if I had done this as a projected image, I would have done it this way. All right, then that's image rotation. You don't have to worry about trim, reveal, duplicate, apply image calculation variables, any of these other things. You can ignore all this. So image rotation up are the things that you would want to play with. All right. Any other questions about these guys?
I've got a question.
Okay.
This may be a little bit outside what you want to teach and you can say, but back to the transform tool.
Yes.
I took a photo once out Moss Landing and otter photo, and it's they're moving, the boat's moving, yada yada.
Yeah.
And so the otter's head was very close to the edge of the top of the photo. So what I wonder about is with free transform and content aware, can you show how that might work?
Yeah, actually, I'll show you a really easy way. I think I have in mind what you're thinking about, Mercury. So I'm going to move this over to the side of the canvas. And then I'm going to take this is going to be easy, and you could do this the same way. I'm thinking that your otters have some water around them.
That's it.
And you would select just the water, not the otters. Then you'd say Control T, which is going to be transform. And then you have to push Shift as you drag this. And guess what? I'm going to get more wall. So you could get as much water as you wanted.
You got to do it again. Stupid Cooper was barking because he was all full of himself. Okay, so we just brought Cooper in. So you had free transform. You selected shift, and could you just show that again?
Yeah, so I made a selection of a section of the wall, or in your case, a section of the water. And then you do Control T, which is free transform. And then hold the shift key down if you're on a PC or a Mac, I think.
Yep.
The same for both. And then you grab, I'm going to grab this right hand square right here in the center. And I'm going to drag it over there.
Oh, okay.
And now my wall is much longer. And by the same token,
Now you just did that by just free transform and then the shift key, and the shift key to automatically did the content aware part.
no, there's no content aware going on here. All that is stretching the wall.
You just literally stretched it. Okay, there's all those little lines became a little
Yeah,
wider.
content aware, unless you have a bunch of water above the otter,
Mhm.
content aware is not gonna be able to do it.
Well, but it would with water, and in this case, it could theoretically with the patterns in that wall.
Yes,
So Eric,
yeah.
okay, I was just designing a book cover and
Uh-huh.
I needed more space right and left.
Yep,
So I took the marquee tool,
yep,
overlapped the edge a little bit, made a big thing, and used the generative content aware,
yep.
and it fills it in exactly perfect.
Yeah, well, let's try that. Well, actually, you have to do that in the beta for the generative.
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
Right,
So in the
right.
beta, it works fantastic.
Okay, that's
I did
really good to
all-
know.
Yeah, I
And
did it all
actually,
4 sides.
at
And
the,
what it did, it took the sky,
yeah,
made the sky, it took the dirt, made the dirt, kept the slope of the hill, kept the rocks. It's really amazing.
it is quite amazing. Actually, I was gonna, if, at the end, if anybody wants to hang around, we can do a look at the beta for a little bit.
Super.
Uh, let's see what content aware will give us, just for the heck of it. We can do content aware fill. And it wants me to say, what do I want to fill it with? And I'm going to apply it. It didn't get the proportions very well.
Now your green selection went above the picture frame. That doesn't make a difference.
No, because look, it's going way down here below the
Yeah,
frame.
right,
too.
right.
Yeah, if you put the green down in the sidewalk as well, it'd probably do better.
Yeah. Let's see. We'll give it a chance. It did somewhat better.
I think you're sampling from the stretched pixels that might affect it.
It tried.
The beta is much better.
Yeah, I'm sure it is. Okay.
Thank you.
But does that help you out, Mercury? Does that,
Yeah, so that make me more aware of the process. So basically, you just stretched it is what you showed me. And in the case of water and certain grass or certain samples, that would work.
yeah, many things that'll work, stretching it out like that. And I use that for skies. If you remember at the show at the JCC, I had an image of a cliff looking down on the water, and then all this water stretched out to the ocean. I stretched that probably twice as far as it was in the original photo. So, okay. If there are any more questions about this image tab, then I will open up the beta and we can play with that a little bit.
So right.
Okay. I'm going to stop sharing that one and I'll open up the beta. By the way, there was an update on the beta today. So I don't know what it did, but it has new things, I guess. That doesn't look like the beta to me. That looks like the one I was just in. Let's try again.
See Rick Tavin's present. Are you still in Hawaii, Rick?
No, I'm in Truckee.
Getting around.
Very,
Tired.
very similar to Hawaii. Okay, I'm opening. Oh, screen sharing has failed to start. The window you selected is invalid. I've never seen that before. Huh. It won't let me open up the beta in maybe Adobe's blocking it for some reason. That's very interesting. I can see it. Let me try one more time just to see if I can get it to cooperate.
While you're seeing if it'll cooperate, it seems to me before a year goes out, we have to start thinking about having AI as a category.
Yeah, we could try. Okay, can you see it now?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Well, let's open up something. Well, actually, let's open up these are some projects I've been doing for work. This is I'll open up this one. So my daughter got married recently, and this is this image of she and her husband and the minister there. She had told me when she was little, she always wanted to be married in the rain at the beach. So I told the beta to say wedding in the rain. This is her picture, but then it changed the background and put the rain in and sand. So it did okay. It found the edges really well of like the veil and her head. It didn't interfere too much. I didn't have to clean it up. This is a little weird here. Something's going on here, but and I understood that there was the officiant was behind and could see that that blue jacket was different than that blue jacket. So pretty impressive that way.
Eric, can you show us the original and the command?
I can't because I don't have that handy, but
Okay.
let's do a different image. Let me open an image.
And did you do that by just typing in what you wanted it to do?
Yeah. So I'll do that. I'll show you. We'll get an image. Oh, here's the original image. I'm sorry. I can show you that. Yeah, so there's the original image.
Oh, wow.
And then let me find the other image. There you go. And then I can,
So it gave you the whole background. What was your command?
so I told it rain at the beach.
Cool.
So you just go down here and select your subject so it knows what you're doing or the background. And I selected the background. And I'll show you how that works. So let me switch images. Okay, so I said select subject. So it selected the two of them. And then down here in generative fill, you just click on the box and you say, rain at the beach. Now what it's doing, just so you know, before I click the button here, is that it is going out and looking at 300 million images that Adobe has
Huh.
in its libraries. And it's going out and several of those are mine. So it's part of Adobe's images that they have in their system. And it's using those in order to
Is
create
this how you
whatever.
can get around like using your own moon or whatever, using your own rain at the
Yeah,
beach? Go,
yeah.
I was part of the 300 million for sure.
Yeah. So I don't know if you can, or not in the beta anyway, but it'd be nice if you could put your own images in there to reference. And then it'd be okay for Camera Club, because
Right.
this would not be. Okay, so I'm gonna rain at the beach, click generate, and it's gonna give me 3 options. And it's different every time, by the way. So right now it's going up to the cloud. It's looking for images. It's gathering the information, and it's going to come back and give me. And it's only going to put it in the background. I'm sorry. I did it wrong. Sorry. I selected them, and now I need to do is select inverse. And then say rain at the beach. So it's only going to put it in the background.
Oh, in the background. Okay.
Yeah. So let's try that again.
So you don't have a background selection, but you can say select subject and inverse, you've got a background selection.
Yes. There they are. There's no rain though. It's a cloudy day. Now, if you look down at the bottom, it says 1 of 3. So if I toggle across, there's another choice. And one more time, there's some rains, kind of like a bad storm.
Like
if you-
like you're getting splashed from the.
Yeah, but if you don't like it, you just hit generate and it'll do 3 more.
So
Yeah,
how many
that
times did you
that's on
try
there
it
right
before you
now.
got the image you showed us?
It doesn't, actually, the image that I showed you was actually pretty good.
Yeah.
It generated that. It took me like 7 tries, something like that. Let's see. So now we have 6 images to look at. Yeah, so none of these would work for me, but that one that it gave me before did work. So it's a
I
little,
mean, if you go back to one of those 3 showed rain over the ocean, I thought actually that might qualify.
this one, or
Maybe I'm not, I thought I saw one that actually had rain in there with the background, but maybe it didn't. Okay, never mind. There you go. I
yeah,
thought that's
some
pretty cool.
rain over here. Yeah, so it has some possibilities. This one needs a lot more cleanup. There's some, I don't know, buttons or something hanging off of here. So I would have to
Well,
clean it
still,
up.
it allows for the rain and none of them are wet. So this actually, I think, is a pretty good selection.
Yeah, yeah. Let's try, let's go to the ballerina and we'll see if it'll and it doesn't have my recent selections in the beta. It's in my original, so, but let's find some things that I can do here. I'll find the ballerina. She's on my desktop right now. And I took lots of shots of the ballerina jumping in order to get the right one, by the way. Uh,
Exercise in, huh?
yeah. All right, I'm gonna use a JPEG file. There she is. I'll make it bigger. So I'm gonna ask it and then I'm gonna ask it something and then you guys can decide to ask it something as well. Oh, okay. It made a selection for me, but I didn't want it to. Okay, I'm gonna make a selection of this lower area and then I'm gonna say graffiti on sidewalk, which was part of my original idea that I didn't have time to do. I was gonna put graffiti on the back wall and on the sidewalk. And let's see what it gives us. Doesn't look like graffiti to me. It's kind of messy, but okay.
Huh.
Yeah, so obviously it's not perfect, but I can click generate and it'll give me 3 others to try.
What blows my mind is how fast it is.
Yeah, it can do amazing things. It's looking at thousands of images.
That's pretty interesting. Last one. No, yellow's good.
That's kind of grungy look.
Yeah.
Okay. But let's try something different. Let's try.
I've got a suggestion since Jeff is here.
Yeah,
Replace the back wall with a Bugatti.
yeah, okay. Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to put it here. So my selection is the back wall. And I'm going to say Bugatti, B-U-G, is there an H?
No,
2 T's and an I, is that Bugatti?
I think so.
Looks pretty good to me.
Okay, let's just see what it says. Well, might have to say car, just to make sure it knows what it's doing. This might be too complicated of an image for it. Well, there's your Bugatti and the girl's gone and all you've got is,
Oh, we got the shadow.
we got her
How
shadow.
about ballerina jumping over a Bugatti?
There you go. We could try
Oh,
something.
that's funny. Look at those wheels. Oh my God. She got run over by the Bugatti.
Yeah. Let's,
So Eric, I found if you want to put something in like a car,
yeah,
make a selection area the size of the car you want.
okay. Yeah,
So
That
you can
makes
make a smaller selection relative to her,
sure.
and then it should fill it in.
All right, let's try that. So let's say there was half a car.
Is it smart enough to know, like, so if you say Bugatti car background,
Maybe.
Or Bugatti parked on a grass field.
Be nice to keep the wall in there.
Yeah, I would just say Bugatti car and then it'll figure out how to get it into that background, I think. It will definitely be interesting someday. And for commercial agencies and things like that, it's probably a quick way to do things. Well, it dropped it sort of into that wall.
Gave it a door.
And it's not a Bugatti.
Yeah, is
No,
that
it's a back end of some car.
Audi or something?
Yeah.
You know what though? Audi owns Bugatti.
Oh, do they?
The second one's better, I think, right?
Well, actually, yeah, let's see. Go away.
Go to variations.
I didn't get any variations that time, so let's see if we
But
can.
it's showing 3.
I didn't see 3.
I still see them.
You do? Oh, over
Three
here.
samples to the
Oh, I'm
right.
sorry. I'm sorry. Over here in this panel, yes. Okay. Well, that works better.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it added a little bit of shadowing behind here, but it dropped it in there and it's gonna run her over. So. But that's fairly clean.
Yeah.
That's way better than the previous effort.
Yeah, yeah. That's a little too harsh with a hard
Yeah,
line.
go down to the one in the middle lower.
That's that's the Audi. It kind of works.
Yeah,
Uh,
black car was positioned better.
yeah, I couldn't see those because your smiling faces or your names are covering it.
Right.
Okay, let's try something simpler. Let me think of an image.
About a forest.
Yeah, I have an image of a girl that I used a while back. Maybe this. Yeah. Okay. So we'll open up this. And what I'm going to ask it to do is, essentially I want it to do is add flowers, those are alyssum flowers. So add alyssum flowers. And by the way, this selection that I made, if you remember from previous classes, if you look up the options, it's 0 feather. So that puts a harsh edge on it. If I had chosen, well, I'll choose a softer edge. I'll use the lasso tool and I'll put like 40 pixels, so it'll be softer. And then I'll see if I can get it to do it in this area. And I'll say add alyssum flowers. I'll say white because there are multiple colors actually. I put flowers all around her in the image that I submitted to a competition a couple of years ago.
Yeah, using cloning though, right?
I had to clone them all, yeah. I have found in a few tests that I've done with this that it does know how to keep relative size of the flowers. That
Really good.
that
Not
worked
bad.
pretty, yeah, not bad. Let's try another area here. And your selection, by the way, doesn't have to be perfect. Um, There you go.
Wow.
So look at some of the other variations though, to see if they're not as clustered. Yeah, so
Oh,
it's actually it's giving you some good options.
Yeah. Not bad. It's amazing to me that it knows or it's able to size it properly, right? It's making it's how does it know how big to make those flowers? So it's referencing the other flowers that are in the image and saying, okay, I'm going to make them about that same size because they could be 10 times that size, right? How does it know my proportions?
Yeah, right.
So somehow it knows. Now I'm going to do something on, whoops. Let me fix that. I'm going to do something on purpose. I'm going to go over her arm here and see if it knows to avoid her arm or not.
Well, yeah, one would think it would know.
It probably does.
You'd put them on top of them,
Yeah, it could be that
But-
flowers cover her finger.
but you did cover that area. I mean, it would think you told it you wanted them there.
Yeah, yeah. I haven't tried that, so I just thought I'd see. No, it didn't.
It
One
did.
one flower's on her dress.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. In that one, let's see what this one does. There it goes. Now that it overlapped them.
Mm-hmm.
That's actually kind of nice.
Yeah. And that one it overlapped them a little too. Interesting.
Interesting.
You know, it's interesting just thinking about this from a competition point of view, because we're gonna say like you can't, if you're adding sky or you want to add the moon, you gotta add your own moon. But I mean, like here, you can see how somebody's tempted, look, I could just clone all these, or I
Yeah.
could get generative fill,
Right.
and to accomplish the same thing.
Yep.
And then we're now into a gray area, right? So to everybody's conscience as to how they sort the stuff out.
Well, how is it really gray? I mean, whether you're cloning it or it's cloning it.
I think it has to be the maker has to clone it, can't let the AI do it.
But how are we going to know the difference?
We
So,
are.
I think,
Yeah.
so I
it's-
think, okay, guys, I think Adobe, when you do this kind of stuff, especially with the new Firefly, on the metadata, it says that it was made with their material. that they
Oh, okay.
did.
I'm sure they're going to market some. They
Yeah,
have,
so
basically
it's,
they'll have to.
it's in the metadata for the picture.
You can remove the metadata.
Well,
Sure.
yeah, but if you're in a lot of competitions, they'll ask you for the original raw image.
So,
So-
well, let's
Your
do
image
this.
is getting better and better, Rick.
Yeah, we got a puppy now.
Oh, that's cool.
And note that it put the paw under her hand.
Yeah, no kidding.
That's cool.
Very interesting.
Yeah, now you could use your transform tool and you could add space, so you get the whole dog in there.
I could add what? What'd you say?
With your transform tool, you could add space, so you could get the whole dog in there.
Yeah, no, I could. I'm gonna say beta. I want to look, Jeff, that was a good point. Let's look at the properties. On this image, whoops. Okay, you guys can still see this?
Yeah.
Okay. I'll do it so you guys can see, hopefully. Where is she? With the puppy. Huh,
Maybe it's not saved yet.
or it didn't save it in the, oh no, here it is. It's this beta here. So let's right click it and look at properties. Okay. That's just blah, blah, blah.
So it says generative layer. Click on that
Where do you see that?
in properties.
I see previous versions, details, security in general.
Where are you reading?
I don't see any of that.
Oh, I'm looking over on the right-hand side. That's on the image behind it. Sorry.
Oh,
Never mind.
Oh, yeah, generative layer on the right. Okay, there it is. Yeah.
you can't see the sub screen, general security details.
No,
Oh, okay. I guess it only allows me to look at the properties and doesn't share that, but there is no information there saying that Adobe had anything to do with it. Let me look under advanced.
Of course, that might be a hidden property.
Yeah, maybe on their end.
but when you're looking at it that way, what properties are is this what Windows is saying is the properties?
Yes, so you right click on it and hit properties and it'll tell you.
But you need to open it in something that'll show you all the internal picture properties, right?
So Adobe says there's the thing called content credentials. And it has your name, social media, web address. Oh, it's in the future. So there's a
Oh.
verify.
Oh, okay.
Okay,
yeah,
and then to inspect an image's contents more in depth, you can visit the verify site.
okay.
And then the verify site, I guess, looks at the image and it can
Yeah.
figure out.
I was
Oh.
I was thinking Photoshop might tell you as well. Version
let's see.
history or file info, no.
If
Okay,
you go to image, isn't there a
no, it's over here under file info. Let's see what that gives us.
oh yeah, okay, there it is.
Yeah,
I
So
think
they
it's-
have another program called Verify Beta. So
Yeah.
you put the picture in that and it breaks it back apart and tells you
Okay.
what was original, what's changed.
yeah,
This will tell you if it's buried in the metadata or not,
Yeah.
though.
yeah. You guys can see these that I'm showing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, in the raw data, it may, because it's saying Adobe camera raw settings. Let's go down to the bottom. No, I don't see anything that jumps out at me anyway.
You could copy all that text, put it into a text file and search for things like generate or an AI.
Yeah, that's true. I'll send that right over, Rick, and get on that with
Okay.
you. Yeah, I don't see anything there, so,
I'm just a skeptic.
yeah.
Listen, I've enjoyed this. I got stuff I got to do. Thank you, Eric.
All right, me too. All right, guys, we will have another one next month. And just a quick
Okay.
announcement is that I am doing one-on-one Photoshop classes for anyone that wants to do one-on-one classes. You have to pay for those. These are free. So just keep that in mind if anyone's interested in doing one-on-one and I would come to you on your computer and we would do images together and or figure out what things you want to learn. We'll go from there.
Thank you, and thank you.
Thanks, Eric.
Thanks.
All right. Good night, everybody.
Great, thank you.